This is your 20-minute podcast, where we do our best to give you useful information in 20 minutes or less. Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/your 20-minute podcast. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. Now, here's your host, David Brower.
Welcome back to your 20-minute podcast with David Brower. Our special guest today is Naresh Vissa from Tampa Bay, Florida. He's the founder and CEO of Krish Media and Marketing. And you are, my friend, the first millennial entrepreneur I've ever interviewed. So I'm excited to talk to you.
Well, that's an honor, David. I'm glad. Hopefully we can bridge some of that generational gap in this interview today.
I know, right? You're a millennial and I'm a baby boomer, so it should be fun.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Thanks for having me on the show.
You're very welcome. So you gave up a job in the corporate world to live a nomadic life of minimalism while trying to grow your online marketing projects. Tell me how that all transpired. What were you doing in the corporate world, and what gave you the goal to move this other direction?
Well, my corporate experience wasn't as long as a lot of these stories that you hear of people working for, decades upon decades, David. I got started in the corporate world actually on Wall Street. I was a financial analyst for a very, one of the largest banks out there. In fact, you might even have an account with them. So that was in New York City. And it was just a very corporate, bureaucratic experience.
Yeah.
And of course, it pays well. And I think it's great to get that experience, especially if you're younger in life. And I got that experience. I also worked at a value fund as an equities analyst to analyze, publicly traded companies and, look for good value stocks. My entrepreneurial career, it kind of just fell into my lap. I was working part-time as a student from my dorm room in undergraduate college and university, and that continued throughout grad school. I was actually helping produce radio shows. This was pre-podcasting. This is when AM/FM radio was still pretty big. And that led to all sorts of opportunities. Even though it was a side job or a side gig, it led to all sorts of entrepreneurial opportunities. And I was hired by one of the largest financial publishing companies in the world. So again, it was a corporate type of job, but it was not like a Wall Street, white collar, go in wearing a suit every day type of job. This was more of they tried to nurture a startup environment. So long story short, I got some amazing experience there to learn about an industry, to learn about the big players within the industry, and to learn about online and digital business, e-commerce, and marketing. So I took that with me, started my own company, and 4 years later, we're now a full-service online and digital business agency. That's really what we are. We offer anything online, whether it's something as simple as web design, more complex things like online project management, affiliate marketing, online public relations, etc. We offer all that.
Wow.
So during this process, I had to work from home. So I was working from home, and that's a completely new lifestyle to most people. It took me about a month to get used to it, and I developed kind of a practice. I was alone in Baltimore at the time, single, just working on growing my business. And that's when I grew intellectually. It's when I grew. Really, the greatest learning that I had was really growing my business during those first few years. I got more of an education doing that than, going to school, getting my degrees, undergrad and graduate school from pretty top-notch schools. I learned more on my own, just kind of being alone and taking, starting a business and going through the ups and downs, the trials and tribulations, the rejections, the triumphs, the big checks, the little checks. It was really a transformational process. And the results are what you described earlier. I kind of realized that less is more. I sold all my stuff. At the time, I lived in Baltimore, Maryland, sold everything, TVs, nice couches, furniture, electronics, and just packed up my car, moved down to Tampa, Florida. Didn't know a single soul down here in Tampa, but that was okay to me because I was very comfortable with myself or being by myself. Just have it really changed my view on looking at life in general. So you brought up minimalism, for example. That's one thing. I do need my iPhone. I do need my iPad.
Yeah.
And I do need my laptop. But outside of that, I don't even own a TV. I don't have a proper TV where I live. I don't watch much TV. I'm not into TVs. I'm not into cars or anything like that. As long as I can get from one place to another. So it changed my outlook in that sense. And it also changed my outlook on money as well, because I saw what it's like to make 5 figures a month, but I also saw what it's like to make 3 figures in a month. And when you go through that process, the way you look at money, the way I look at it is as a byproduct of just doing what you love and doing good work. That's really what it is at the end of the day. We mentioned earlier that I'm a millennial, and if there's one piece of advice I have for millennials, especially when they're out of school in their mid-20s, getting their careers started, it's save, 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 save. I could not go out on my own and do what I did and continue to do what I'm doing if I didn't save during those years when I was making money in the corporate world. If I had less than, let's say, a couple of $1,000s in my bank account,
right,
it would have been too risky for me to go out. But I built up reserves so that I could live. Some people say you should be able to live for 6 months. I think it should be way longer than that. I saved up enough to where I could live the lifestyle that I was living for at least 2 years. And that way I knew, okay, if let's just give it a try for 2 years. And if, things don't work out, I can always go back and get a corporate job and I won't be on the streets. That's really probably the most important piece of advice that I have. And that is, be healthy, because if you're not working full time, now you have to worry about health insurance on top of that. And so, be healthy. And that's why I added daily workouts to my routine. Getting a lot of sleep was so important to my routine. Eating healthy, buying healthy stuff, so important to my routine. I personally am a strict vegetarian, almost vegan. Don't eat eggs either, and that just cuts out a lot of the fat, so to say, from my diet. And then on top of that, it's staying emotionally and mentally healthy as well.
Yeah.
So very rarely, a lot of my friends and colleagues, they're almost kind of muffled at how I rarely get angry. And it's largely because I just kind of conditioned my mind to make sure that emotionally, there's no need to get angry at little things, Once in a while, you might get angry, but you can probably count on one hand how many times I've gotten angry over the past 3 months, or probably even the last year on one hand.
Well, and probably, and not to second guess you, but my sense is that anger is probably more frustration than literal anger. Would that be fair?
Yeah. There are small areas or small things that I got angry about just the other day. It was just one thing. And it was really frustration because of other people. And that's why I say emotionally, it's important to cut out, I said before, cutting out the fat from your diet, but cutting out the fat in the people who you interact with on a day-to-day basis, whether it's a bad client, a bad friend, a bad, acquaintance, a bad organization that you're a part of. It's important to cut those out because it'll make you emotionally healthier and it'll make you happier at the end of the day. So I mentioned earlier, were there months where I was making, peanuts compared to what I was making at a full-time job? Yes, but the happiness level, whether I was making, a few $100s a month or tens of thousands of dollars a month, I think my happiness level stayed the same throughout the process. And other people who were in contact with me had said the same thing. It's almost like, I have no idea how your business is going, but you're kind of the same person throughout.
Well, and they can see that aura, for lack of a better term, that what you give off, what you share with people when you're at peace with yourself and what's going on with your life, people sense and feel that. And then the other thing that you're talking about, I believe, is being able to cut out the fat in relationships. And by that, I mean surrounding yourself with people who are like-minded so that they become more like you, you become more like them, because that's where you want to be. That's where you want to lead.
Absolutely. And David, you bring up a good point, because when I got started, I was 24 years old when I went out full-time on my own. And there weren't a lot of like-minded people around me. There were maybe, one or two people around the world who I was in contact with because we had something in common. But we live in a different time today, David, and I found people who may not have necessarily been my friends, and they may not have even known me, but I found them online through podcasts, through their books that I found on Amazon. And that was a way to connect with like-minded people without even meeting them, without even being friends with them. Listening to their podcasts and listening to like-minded ideas and reading such books or articles or blogs, they have really helped me connect with other people like me. I've made friends through doing things like this, and they've also helped me internally just kind of be a happier person.
Until next time, don't forget to download your free audiobook at audibletrial.com/your 20-minute podcast. That's audibletrial.com/your 20-minute podcast for your free audiobook. And thanks for listening to Your 20-Minute Podcast with David Brower.